Asher, Noach is having doubts about his ability to in fact construct the ark as instructed. So he's going to have this physical divine image that's placed in front of him so that he won't have a question, and he is going to make it ta'aseh in a way to complete the task without having doubt, because he's going to have this mental image of the way each and every step should be done. So that's asher ta'aseh, bringing in the thought and closing it off with the concept of zeh standing out in front of it. Ota, with it. So again, this is the possessive, because it's got that dot in the hey. This is an etnachta. This is the center part of a sentence. And remember, etnachta is a stabilizing note, possibly with something pointing up or higher from it. Number 4, by constructing the box, you will be able to save original forms of creation. With it, you will be able to preserve life, as shown by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So he's saying that ota is not it, her, literally her, or the female it, but it's saying ota with the dot in the hay, with it. He's saying by using it from its properties. And that is going to give you a stable place, and the stable place is going to be the place where you can have it fulfill its task. Shalosh, number 5, the word 3. We've had a dargah before. A dargah is this stepwise going down note. The word dargah in Hebrew sounds like madrigah, like steps. Dargah usually begins either a phrase, dargah tevir, or dargah munach revi'i. Never stands alone, always leads into something else that's going to come after it. Number 5, the box will consist of 3 main sections, one on each extremity and one in the middle segment, and those will be connected with one another as suggested by the reading mark. So again, we have the word 3. It's going to tell us that those 3 parts are separate from each other, but the way that sets of steps are always connected to the one above and one below, I'm going to say that these sections are connected to each other as well. Me'ot, ama, munach, revi'i, number 6, hundreds. Each, so this is a munach. Remember that by its shape, it separates itself out slightly from the concept before, and then moves, or the reality before, and moves on to whatever is going to be the new established reality. Each one of the parts will occupy equal sizes by hundreds of measuring units, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So while each compartment is going to be separate from each other, it's going to have something that is going to be the same or comparable to each of the other ones. So separate, but continuing on the same, as we see from the Menach. Rivi'i, the word ama, so you see the dot on top of the mem, cubit, and you would normally see the phrase me'ot ama translated not into hundreds cubit, but you would say hundreds of cubits. You would use that word me'ot as a possessive, and because your father is taking the concept of each word representing a paragraph in and of itself, we've got that word of omitted here. It's implied if you read me'ot ama, but it's not implied if you're reading the words individually in and of themselves. So just something to note about the way that he's translated it. So ama, cubit, And again, it doesn't say of. There's no of in either of these words actually. But if we would read the phrase together, we would have implied an of. Number 7. A cubit shall be established as a standard measuring unit for relative comparisons, as confirmed by the broad meaning of the related reading mark. So let's go back to the introduction section again. We are on page LXV, and we're looking for number 9, Rivi'i. Rivi'i is an unlimited superior king who is independent from time and space and does not rely on approvals from anywhere. Occasionally he may require the assistance of one or more officials. So this is a munach Rivi'i that we're dealing with here, so that's what he's talking about, the assistance from an official beforehand. So that munach beforehand is leading into the Rivi'i, which is going to be something that is going to, again, emphasize the word, and it emphasizes it with a note that goes down, Rivi'i, from the word arba, it goes down in 4 steps. Rivi'i. Amma, so we're coming back to page 8 in the Noach section, number 7. We're getting the idea that the cubit is now going to be the standard of measurement from here on in. It's going to be something that's going to be set in stone, if you will, from here on in, and that's why we've got this focus on that word, because Rivi'i, again, is a king, and it is something that is going to establish something. It's going to make it set. It's going to be what we use from here on in. Orech.
Sorry, and also it is an independent measure that doesn't depend on anything else. It's not...
Right. It stands on
standard.
its own.
Yeah.
Orech. So we had made this comment on last week's tape that sometimes you will see a mahapach seemingly outside of its normal phrase, mahapach pashta, and it will lead into just a katon. Here we have that sequence, and sometimes when we have that sequence, the word actually, the note, the reading mark gets a different name. It's called a yativ rather than a mahapach, because it looks like a mahapach, but it's pronounced like a pashta. And as I said, it gets its own name. Nonetheless, your father does not comment on yativ anywhere, and he treats it really just as a mahapach. So mahapach again is that less than sign. It's going to be something that is going to focus things from before into a sharp point, or funnel them into a new reality. Orech, length, number 8. The largest extension from both opposite extremities shall represent the length of the structure as specified by the shape of the reading mark. The length is going to be bigger. It's going to be the bigger of the two measures, and it's going to lead into the smaller of the measures, which we'll talk about afterwards, and that's what we get from this funneling in to something that is smaller afterwards. Hateva, of the box, number 9. This is a katon. It's that 2 dots that's on top of the veit there. Number 9. However, the total shape of the box shall be conveniently adapted to its function in water, hydrodynamic, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. The ark is going to have to eventually be able to float, so you're going to have part of it that's going to be underwater and over water, and the shape is going to exactly fit into both those functions, to be underwater and over water and be stable and be functional and so on. And that's why we have this 2-part note on top of Hateva. Number 10, 50, Chamishim, which has a mahapach under it, and again, this is going to focus what's going to come from before and lead to a more constrained outcome. Number 10, perpendicular to the length, it shall measure 50 unit to provide a sizable loading capacity, as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark. So we're going to have something that is big that's going to allow things to come inside of it. And that's what this Mahapach is going to tell us. Along the length is where you're going to have the entrance to the ark. So it's not going to be on the top, it's not going to be on the bottom, it's not going to be at the back, it's not going to be at the front, it's going to be along the orach. And we see the actual opening in the note. We see the way that things are going to come into the ark, funneling into a narrower space. Hateva of the Ama, number 11. Chamishim Ama. The Mahapach is the beginning of a phrase. It leads into a pashta, and after that either a katon or a zakef katon. Here we have Mahapach pashta katon. Chamishim Ama rochba. Number 11, cubit. And again, because we're reading the words individually, we omit the implied of cubits. 50, a width of 50 cubits is the way that we would normally say that phrase. But here, again, we interpret each word individually. 50 cubit, its width. Number 11, the same constant size of a cubit shall be applied to all the dimensions for desirable proportions as conveyed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So Ama, this measure that we've set before, is no longer this thing that's being set in stone. It's just something that's being emphasized as the unit that we're using it, and it's going to stay the same way. And that's why before we had Ama with a Revi'i on top of it, and now we have Ama with a Pashta on top of it. It's now a set fact, and we're just going to use that set fact.
I'm sorry, but I don't see where you were mentioning that from the shape of the reading mark we can see where the entrance was.
So,
can you review that again?
Sure. Orach HaTeva, the length of the teva. So we've mentioned the long side.
Yes.
Chamishim. So that 50. Where's that 50 going to do? It's going to be along the length because it's funneling in what's coming from before. So where is that? Where is the part that's going to let things go into the ark going to be? It's going to be along that length. The door is going to be on the long side. Again, not on the front, not on the back, not on the top, not on the bottom. So it's funneling in from the length, and it's going to the inside.
So the Chamishim then belongs to the Orach or to the...
Chamishim is in fact describing the width, but the door is going to be along the length because it's bringing what's from before.
Mm.
So even though the word chamishim is in fact describing the width, because because of the shape, it's telling you that that door, that way to go in, is going to be along the length.
And it will be at the chamishim mark?
No, chamishim is how wide the ark is going to be. The ark is 300 cubits long and 50 cubits wide, but because we're talking about what's coming from before, the door, the part to go in, has to come along the length, that 300 that's here. And it's going to go inside of this width of 50.
Uh-huh.
Rochba, number 12, its width. The length of the box, combined with its width, shall provide the necessary space to accommodate all inhabitants, including their supplies, as demonstrated by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. This is a katon. It's those two dots that are on top of the bait. You'll notice that there is a dot inside the letter Hey, and that's where we get the fact that it's its width, belonging to it. The katon, again, we said that anything that has two parts to it is going to talk about sort of two different elements that might be expressed here, and we've got both the things that are going to go into the ark and the things to sustain them. And because we've got this katon, he's going to say that the width is going to be enough to include not only the inhabitants but all the supplies that are necessary for them. And fact, all of their waste. Number 13. And 30, ushloshim. So this is a mercha. This is going to gently lead into what's going to happen after it. Number 13, the third outside dimension was reserved for the height, and 30 standard units shall be applied to the height of the structure as depicted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we'll read it together with number 14, cubit, amah. So this is a tipcha. It's going to fold in what we learned from the word before. It's going to include that. So a cubit was the length applied to all dimensions in order to have an estimation of the total structure as signified by the closing shape of the reading mark. So why didn't we just use the word amah once? Shlosh meot amah orach, 50 amah rochav, or 50 rochav ushloshim koma. So why do we keep on saying the word amah? And we're saying that this amah is going to be standardized. The first amah has the revi under it to tell us that this is the standard and this is what we're going to use. The second one, we still get a focus on it. Yes, we're still using that amah. It hasn't changed. And the last one, we're just saying yes, we're still using the amah, and we're just gonna fold everything in with it. So it's become seemingly more mundane, more of a standard as we go from that first revi'i to the pashta to the tipcha. So that's the different notes, the different reading marks that are on the same word 3 times in the same sentence. Komata, number 15, its height. The reason that its height was projected to be relatively short was intended to add stability to the box, considering that part of it was, when immersed, would protrude even less above the surface of the water. So we have something that is very long, relatively wide, and even, or somewhat wide, and even shorter than it is wide. And komata is a sof pasuk. This is something that is going to close off the thought and perhaps add some stability. And he's saying that its height is going to be exactly that, is going to be not too tall, so that it has more stability when it is in fact floating in water. Yeah.
It's very interesting that just looking at the actual shape of the reading mark, when you look at orech, which funnels all the way down the length, it's like it casts your eye along a long visual vista. And rochav, it's balanced on either side, 50. So it has the 2 parts, balanced on either side. And then koma is straight up and down.
And we're at the remark at the end of the sentence. Not only were expressions around the box related to creation, but also some numbers correspond with the tabernacle. What the box meant for all humanity, the tabernacle was intended to mean for the Jews. So we have specific descriptions of dimensions, and we will see some of those numbers used again in the curtains of the Mishkan and the concept of relating something's height, weight, and length, or height, width, and length, which we'll do with all of the artifacts that were in the Mishkan. So he's just making the fact that some of these numbers will appear again important, in that the concept here is this is a shelter for humanity, and the Mishkan will be a shelter, a connecting point for the Jewish people to the divine.
Cool.
We are on Pasuk Tetzayin, Pasuk 16. Sohar. So we'll remember when we talked about the Revi'i, that the Revi'i could have several officers leading up to it, and the last sentence we had a Munach Revi, one thing leading up to it. And if you remember the introduction, he said when it's got more than one of these minions coming before it, that there will be a pause after the first one. There will be a psik, you will have, sometimes when you look in some of the texts, there will be a straight line that comes after the first word to tell you that that first munach has a little bit of a pause after it. So, Zohar Taseh Lateva, and that first munach has a different intonation than the second munach. Number one, an illumination. An illumination shall be installed externally to facilitate visibility for internal order and for appreciation of the heavenly law of day and night, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark and the psik. So again, this is a munach. Munach has this straight wall and then leads on from there. We will see that the way that things are going to be inside are going to be separate from the way that they are outside, and the first order of creation is Yehi Or, that there should be light. So again, we're going to have that separation between light and darkness that is going to be allowed into the ark by this by this construct that we're going to talk about. And it's going to again have this separation that is implied with the munach, and separation that's implied by the psik, by that pause that comes after it. And again, he doesn't include it here in his writing of the sentence, but there will be, when you see this in some chumashim, a line directly after the word sohar to separate it from the next word. And he says, to please note, Zohar, radiance, is inferior to Sohar, brightness, which would be part of the word Saharayim, noon, the most bright time of the day. Although similar in sound, the first expression is lower in numerical value.
But he's not using aura, which is very interesting.
It's more a question of being able to convey light, a way to convey light than the light itself. So the ark isn't going to have its own light. It's going to have a way to allow light to come through, and because he's saying that because we're using the expression sohar, it's going to allow in a lot of light, versus Zohar, which would be a radiance, a part of something that would give you a hint of what's there, not necessarily a full clear view. And again, we have our Sefer Zohar, which is sort of telling us what is emanating from the worlds above us, but we really can't get a clear picture. It's the best that we can perceive, versus Sohar, which would be something that you could see clearly. He does not. We'll talk later. I'll bring in another concept as we go farther. Ta'aseh, you shall make. So this is another munach. This is the one that's after the psik. It's going to lead into the revi'i that comes after it, but it has the same function as of a munach. Separates itself a little bit from what's before and moves on to the new established concept. Ta'aseh, because of its importance, you shall make it an essential component of your structure, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. It is going to be something that is going to stand alone and make an important contribution, as we can see from the shape of the munach. La teva, for the box, number 3. This is a revi'i. Sorry, did I skip something? Yes, I did. Sohar ta'aseh, sorry, he makes a comment, Sohar ta'aseh. Rashi says it was a window. However, the Gemara, Rav Yochanan in Sanhedrin, suggests that God said to Noach to select 2 good stones and pearls to condense light and intensify it, like at noon. So we had the concept that Rashi brought forth, that was Noach in fact an ish tzaddik, or was he tzaddik b'dorotav? Was he truly a great man who would stand in any generation, or was he great in his generation, but had you placed him in another generation, he would have not really stood out? And a further corollary of this is, what did he get to make this window of, this thing that allowed light into the teva out of? If he were truly someone of greatness, then he would have the appropriate compassion and the appropriate ability to see and witness everything that was happening to the world around him as it was destroyed, and the window would have been clear. Whereas if he was someone who was of lesser greatness, then he would have had an opaque something that just gave a lot of light, so that he could certainly see what he was doing while he was feeding the lion and so on, but didn't need to really truly appreciate the details of what were happening outside. So again, Rashi says that it's a window, and the Gemara suggests that it's two precious stones that are not only going to gather light but make the light more intense, so that it'll be bright inside, but you won't have a clear view of the outside. So Sahar Rayim, noon, has that word Sohar in it, again, which is this bright light. Number 3, Lateva, the Revi'i. So again, we say that this is a note that stands on itself and brings focus and perhaps establishment to the word that it's on top of. While installing the light, he should not be guided by convenience alone, but it shall be a service for the box and for all its occupants, as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So the light is la teva. It's doing the best that it can do to service the ark. So he's telling us that Noach had to be careful with his placement of this, so that it would be as functional as it could be la teva for all the things in the ark, and that would be the driving concern in placement and size and material that was used for this light, because it had to be la teva, and not just for himself. So it didn't go over his bedroom or whatever, or the kitchen. It had to go where it would serve the teva most. V'el ama, and to its center. So we have the word ama used again, but here it's not referring to a cubit. Here he's saying that the word ama is coming from aim, from mother, its core, its center. So again, an interesting, and it's not a view that's shared by all the people who take this word and try to give it a translation. But again, you're going to determine its center by measuring out in amot, measuring it out in cubits, that the way you were measuring everything else. Number 4, the aperture of the box for the light shall be applied properly and to its center for an equal distribution throughout the box, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this is a pashta. Pashta highlights the word a little bit, but doesn't make it a major focus of attention. It's just saying it's sort of an established fact that the sohar, the light that we're going to make, is going to be el ama. It's going to be to the center, so that it distributes it, because it was la teva, that we saw from the Revi, that it's going to go in a place that's going to serve the rest of the teva. Tichalena, number 5, you shall complete it. you shall complete it thoroughly, such that it is solid, watertight, and accurately fitted, comparable to the rest of the box, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. This is a zakef katon, so this is again the equivalent of a munach. It's going to be separate from the things that are before, and then continue on to the new way that it's going to be. So your completion of it is going to allow you, like we said before, with each step in the arc, he's going to test the previous step before he goes on to the next step. Each step is going to be separate from the other step, and each step is going to be thorough and complete.